They do great things, but does that make them good businesses? Nonprofits and socially minded companies, how do they function? Are they more than just charity cases?
Doing well while doing good. This is The Language of Business with Greg Stoller.
There are over 20 million students living in poverty in the United States. With all they worry about, should what they wear to school be one of them? Mickey Cockrell, along with her sisters, is keeping the doors to Katie's Closet open. So what is Katie's Closet?
Katie's Closet was named for my niece, who attended Lowell schools and witnessed firsthand the challenges students living in poverty were facing. As she told us, all these kids want is a chance to succeed in school like everyone else. Katie passed away in 2010, but her legacy lives on in the work that we do here at Katie's Closet. So we provide clothing and basic necessities for students living in poverty. We actually go into public schools and build free stores.
And what are you defining as a store?
So it is anywhere from 150 to 350 square feet, full of jeans and t-shirts and hoodies and all the basic necessities, including toiletries, underwear, and shoes.
When a kid goes into one of these stores, do they risk being bullied by their classmates?
If they don't go into the store, they're bullied. So their, lack of clothing and basic necessities is cited as one of the top reasons for absenteeism. Kids just don't want to come to school because they are embarrassed, they don't fit in, and they are the target of bullying. Katie's Closet erases that for them. They can go in as discreetly and as quietly as they want and emerge a fashionista.
What types of employees work in those stores?
No employees. Everything is volunteer-based. We have over 200 volunteers assist us. They will go in during the week when it's convenient for them, ensure that it looks like a pristine retailer, and then place an order here with the Central Distribution Center on anything that was missing. It's received here by my sister Denise, and then within 24 to 48 hours it's shipped right back into the school.
We're on location in Lowell, Massachusetts. How did you establish this as your distribution hub?
Katie attended Lowell schools, and we were a family that was from Lowell. We also realized that 70% of the student population is from low-income families. So when we opened the first one as a legacy to Kate, it was Lowell High School.
And how many schools do you work with?
25 right now and growing. We actually have over 10 on the waiting list right now.
Why would you have a school on a waiting list then?
Because it costs $5,000 for us to actually outfit the school. It costs nothing for a school themselves. So we earn and raise the money and then open the school.
How do you become a member school?
Schools have been sourcing us for services. As a matter of fact, except for one school, we have never solicited a school. So the phone rings off the hook. So we look at the free and reduced lunch statistics, and we're generally in schools over 70%. We will consider schools over 50%. And we meet with the school administrators, decide on a space, and set up the closet.
Is there any limit to how many clothes an individual can get?
No, it's unlimited. As a matter of fact, our business model is so productive that just $7 provides access for an entire year, unlimited access for one student.
The schools don't pay anything to be members. The students are getting the clothes for free. How does Katie's Closet make money?
So individual donors are very generous, foundations, and corporate sponsors. We will entertain government grants because we've had some introductions in that sector. That will be part of our revenue stream.
Over the past 4 years, being a family business on top of everything else, has that been a help or a hindrance?
Oh, a help. Anne-Marie is the Vice President of Financial Education at Jeanne Credit Union and still employed there. My sister Denise and I left our jobs in order to be full-time employees of Katie's Closet.
Do you ever have any concerns about taking a salary or taking money out?
Well, Denise and I actually started the business full-time without a salary. So we made that commitment right up front. And it's still a nominal salary at this point. So no, I think we're all clear on our financial goals, and we would not take a dime without knowing that it could be expended.
25 schools currently, 10 on your waiting list. What are your other expansion plans?
Over the next 2.5 years, we plan on opening a hub in Boston, in Springfield, and in New Bedford. And once these 4 hubs are 100% completed, we'll be servicing nearly 75% of the need in the state. Beyond that, we've received calls from 7 states already asking how to replicate our model and could we teach them. So over the next 2.5 years, we'll also develop an affiliate model to do just that.
What do you see as a limit to your growth, and how are you going to get around that?
We've really bootstrapped this from the beginning, and I would say over the course of the last 1.5 years, after participating in some of the incubator programs like E4All and Mass Challenge, we're slowly getting the word out there. So raising the money is the only hindrance to scaling the operation as quickly as we'd like to be. That's our focus.
How do you do marketing for Katie's Closet?
We have a great website, katiescloset.org, and we use social media to our best advantage. And I would invite everybody to check out our website and find out how they can participate in Katie's Closet.
Mickey, thank you.
Thank you, Craig.
Mickey Cockrell, the Executive Director of Katie's Closet here in Lowell, Massachusetts.
They have the grades, but do they have the green? Keeping college students out of the red. When we return on the Language of Business.
Our next guest says over 50% of the population has had their credit score unnecessarily lowered due to student debt. His organization's goal is to help you better manage financial aid.
ASA was created in 1956 by the legislature here in Massachusetts. Actually, it was promoted by the Massachusetts Bankers Association to help provide loans and financing for Massachusetts colleges. This is in the days when there were local banks.
Sure.
And that focus was as a guarantor to lenders. In 1996, when I came, the need to guarantee the lenders had gotten smaller. The need to start guaranteeing the students had gotten bigger. So we really changed the focus in 1996 to focusing on debt management activities. We basically use the college financing process as the teaching tool. And so it allows the students to learn how to take out a loan, learn what their obligations are, and we do it over a period of time.
Do the lessons begin when they get their admissions letter or on September 1st, the first day of school?
Well, we actually provide services here in Boston and in other places. In fact, we just started a SALT Live program, which is a bus that we take to high schools.
And SALT is an acronym?
SALT is not an acronym. SALT was the original money. Roman soldiers were paid, in salt. It was the first thing ever taxed, in fact. So the bus process is something that we actually get into the high schools and help them college selection process, but also help them fill out the financial aid forms. Anybody who's going to college, regardless of income, should apply for financial aid.
Do universities provide similar services?
Colleges, individual colleges do have financial literacy programs, but none of them really combine financial literacy and the debt management aspects of it. Very often at the campuses, it's a separate program. It's an academic side, which does financial literacy, and then the financial aid office is dealing with the debt, and our function is to try to really make sure the student's getting all those services together. In other words, there is a means to an end. The end is being able to successfully manage your debt and successfully get through college.
How are you defining the term debt management?
In this country, we finance education. 65 or 70% of all forms of aid available is a form of debt. For the student to be successful and get through college, they have to be able to manage the debt. And one of the major issues we're facing today is that because students are taking so long to pay off their debt, it's stilting home purchases, car purchases, other economic activities. So managing the debt actually becomes a national issue. It's not just a personal thing for the student, it's an economic issue, just like higher education is an economic issue for the country. We want a better educated workforce. We also need the students, if we're going to give them debt to get through college, the tools they need to successfully manage that debt, and that's really the focus.
Are the low interest rates for banks helping or hurting student loan rates?
We're talking federal student loan rates. They're set by Congress, and that's really, it's a congressional action separate from the economy and so on. Right now, though, there are some alternative loans that have fairly good rates because bank rates are low. But the first thing any student should be doing and parents should be doing is looking to the federal loans first. That's really where the best protections are. They're all the repayment options are available in the federal loans.
Are there costs for your services?
No, it's free to the borrower, and as a nonprofit, that's our focus, is to make sure we can provide the highest possible quality of service to the borrower free.
Where do you receive your funding from?
Our funding comes from multiple sources. We're supported by the colleges we work with. There's over 260 colleges, and that's growing. We also receive grants and sponsorships from corporations like Experian and Eastern Bank who are working on specific programs with us. We also work with foundations. Foundations provide funding and so on.
Given how valuable your advice is, why not create a separate for-profit division?
From a public purpose point of view, one of the key elements that we want to do is we want to be neutral. And neutrality, it requires no conflicts, and profit creates a conflict here. And there are collection agencies that provide some of these services, but they're a collection agency. They're taking a cut.
Right.
From a mission perspective, this is actually something the government should be doing anyway. It's their loan program. They should be supplying these services, but as a federal program, you can't do it. It's like having the IRS give you tax advice. You know, there's conflict there. And so it has to be a neutral third party that provides the services and you know, from that perspective, without the motive of profit.
Would there be any conflict of interest from receiving state or federal funding?
No, we do receive some federal funds. We also are working with the Mass State Scholarship Office here in Massachusetts, and they're actually sponsoring SALT for all the state grant recipients. One of the key elements is our target is the consumer. So technically the school's not the customer, the student's the customer. We have to do what's good for them and what's best for them.
Why wouldn't every college across the United States be a member of yours?
I don't know why they wouldn't. No, our goal actually is to continue growing the program. To do that, we need to get more sponsors so we can spread it further.
Paul, thank you.
Thank you.
Paul Comby, the President and CEO of American Student Assistance.
Coming up, how could off-campus housing help veterans? But first, does it pay to be a corporate Jiminy Cricket? We'll find out when the Language of Business continues. A for-profit business with nonprofit sensibilities. This is the Language of Business with Greg Stoller.
All companies, whether for-profit or not-for-profit, like to think of themselves as being ethical. But how does that change when their bottom lines are affected? Darby Hobbs helps financial institutions put a price on being socially responsible. She's the founder and CEO of Social 3, and welcome to the Language of Business.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
What makes a financial services firm socially responsible?
Well, there's two levels. There is the whole area of reputational management, being conscious as a business leader and making right decisions in your management team. The second area of change is if you instill in that at the top and have that as your leadership domain, then maybe you want to also look at investment product that encompasses being socially responsible and environmental social issues so that investors can not only get performance, but also look at giving back in a global manner towards programs that can impact emerging markets or even local communities.
So are you proselytizers? Are you consultants? How does the Social 3 model work?
We are both, actually. I get pulled in to be a motivational speaker many times at corporate settings, at industry conferences, but it's primarily through our consulting. So we work with investment firms that currently have ESG or socially responsible investing portfolios to help them tell their story. And in many instances, we are storytellers to really engage and use terminology, move away from acronyms that confuse the population, to really talk about the impact of that investment portfolio. And if that's something that you are passionate about as a consumer, you will engage in that and begin to have brand identity. The other piece that we work on with firms are actually securities, corporations, and manufacturers that have, let's say, a corporate social responsibility officer. They may have an environmental social governance program, and they tend to operate those very separate from their investor relation area. And so that discussion back to Wall Street to say, how do we create capital formation? How do you spread your story that you're doing good while you're also maintaining the populations around the world towards goods and services? How are you successful at that? And get value for that and allow investors to be educated and to then move money into your investment choices.
Why wouldn't one of your clients do this in-house as opposed to hiring your firm?
Well, they can do it in-house, and they have, and many times we work with existing marketing departments and different media groups. But I will tell you that, again, that the concept of marketing strategy and telling the story and really getting at the emotive issues of investors has not been a strong suit in the financial services world because typically we've defaulted to performance discussion and we feel that investments are bought, not sold. So we tend to align ourselves to existing groups, and sometimes the investment firms don't even have an in-house area that they can focus on, and they have always outsourced it, whether to an ad agency or to a media firm.
Does Social 3 have a set of metrics through which you evaluate whether other companies are socially responsible or not?
That's actually a really good question. We started out many years ago to define a sustainability rating that would be used for financial institutions, but the criteria can certainly go across various sectors. And we're currently working on that with a number of organizations and looking at it as more of an index and something that would be defined around a shared value components. So taking it more into the conscious capitalism and the reputational management side, because it does apply.
What are you doing with your own company to make sure it is socially responsible?
First off, it's who we work with. So making sure that who I surround myself with and people that work with me, that our clients and client relationships are building the same passion, believe in the same areas, and really are driven by the same principles. And that comes down to what we value as business leaders and also our integrity. It also comes down to what their platforms stand for. So I can be somewhat choosy in Social 3 because of how we've defined the company and who we work with. That doesn't always happen for everybody, but that is truly from my standpoint where we're trying to drive it. Again, the projects that we work on, so doing the sustainable living plan, looking at creating an index, making changes in financial markets that haven't been changed in many, many years in terms of a process for selling investment product, that to me is staying close to our knitting, close to our values, and making an impact. And that's how I look at it.
What would it take for you to fire one of your clients?
Truly, if I felt that they were not being representative of their word, and that comes down to what you value and the integrity. It also comes down to trust. If people cannot stand behind what they say, then I can't be affiliated with that. And I think you get to that point in your career to say, if you're going to make impact and change and rebuild trust in an industry that lost it, you have to be the example.
Darby, thank you.
Thank you, it was great.
Darby Hobbs, the founder and CEO of Social 3.
How a house can welcome veterans home when the language of business continues. You're watching The Language of Business with Greg Stoller.
What does a house have to do with serving the veterans of New Hampshire? We're here to find out with Robert Chambers, the chairman and co-founder of Project Vet Care. Robert, welcome to The Language of Business.
Hi, Greg. How are you doing? Very nice to be here with you.
Before you started Project Vet Care, what absences did you notice for veteran services?
My co-founder, Danielle Goodwin, who's not here right now, and I was working in the real estate business, and her husband had just come home from being catastrophically wounded in Afghanistan, spent a year in a hospital. Danielle went to the downtown Hanover and said her husband was coming home from the hospital after a year, and did they want to do a parade, and they laughed at her. And there really was not a very good attitude about the Army or about the service at all here. And so Danielle and I decided to try to form a nonprofit organization to help change that attitude. We decided to sponsor a potluck, and we invited all the veterans in Hanover and had 70 people show up. They'd never met each other. And out of that, we found out that there were many people that thought they deserved benefits and had kind of been rejected by the VA. They're not really very welcoming in dealing with benefit applications. They will help you with them, but you got to go and tell them exactly what you do, versus we really get personal and go into people's homes to do this.
What other services does Project Vet Care provide?
Well, we have helped a number of homeless people and taking people out of tents and taking them in and paying their first month in deposit and helping them get jobs or helping them get VA benefits that they deserve, but you can't apply for benefits if you don't have an address living in a tent.
3 years into your mission, how big are you and how many people do you serve?
We've helped 20 homeless veterans, about 150 a year in our food bank. We have about 60 in emergency grants. We've helped 252 people with veterans applications, 720 in the high school seminar, including 70 veterans, and they get cathartic talking about their own events, and over 500 from our potluck, so a total impact of about 1,700.
How large is your organization?
Well, I'm the chairman of the board. We have an executive director and 2 paid assistants, and we have about 50 volunteers, and during when school's in session, we have about 6 interns.
And how do you make money?
Well, we get money from foundations initially, and we get donations from many of the veterans that we help. We're in the vet house right now, and the income from this vet house helps pay our emergencies and cover some of the expenses.
And what is a vet house?
Well, this is a Dartmouth Student Veteran House, and this got started. We were looking at doing a capital campaign to raise funds, because sometimes it's easier for people to write checks for capital projects than it is for operating funds. And so I went to a major foundation and asked them if they would contribute to a house that we had selected in Lebanon, New Hampshire. They asked me the question, why is this house in Lebanon if you want it for Dartmouth student veterans? And I said, well, houses in Lebanon cost $200,000 and houses in Hanover cost $500,000. And this foundation said, well, look, if you can find the right house in Hanover, maybe we'll give you some more money. And we found the right house. We were very lucky to find a house that's in the right neighborhood, close to the college, that was affordable, and this foundation gave us $375,000.
That's wonderful. How does a Dartmouth student get to live here?
If you come out with a GI benefit, you don't have to pay anything else to come to Dartmouth College. They're given a housing allowance, and we're actually less expensive than staying in the dormitory. And some of the guys are, you know, many of them like to stay in dorms, but many of them like to be able to live in their own environment.
What is your ultimate vision for this vet house?
We want to have the income from this sustain the organization long term. We have applied for the town to be able to expand from 3 people in here to 6, which would double our income.
What do you see as the next 3 to 5 years for Project Vet Care?
Well, I want to buy another house. We're making good progress on it, and sustainability was part of from the very day we founded this. That's what I've told everybody. We want to build an organization that's going to stay around here, that isn't going to go away when I go away.
Robert, thank you very much, and especially for your service.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Robert Chambers, the chairman and co-founder of Project Vet Care here in Hanover, New Hampshire.
How can a family find comfort in the worst of times? With the help of the Courageous Parents Network, when the language of business continues.
When she lost her 2-year-old daughter to Tay-Sachs disease in 2001, she was determined to make something good come from it. Now, 13 years later, her family's experience is the driving force behind launching the Courageous Parents Network.
Courageous Parents Network provides expert guidance and virtual parent-to-parent support to parents of seriously ill children. We teach parents about the value of palliative care. We have videos and content featuring experts such as doctors, social workers, hospital chaplains, pediatric palliative care social workers, talking about critical issues that families deal with. In the ideal situation, they'd have a therapist, they'd be part of a support network, but most parents aren't. They don't either have access to a good therapist or a support network. So we are that virtual support network. We launched only a year ago, and all of our services are delivered over the web. Our resources are all digitally delivered, and we have about 7,800 unique visitors to the site thus far. We haven't done any outreach or marketing. That's a big push for this year and going forward is outreach and marketing.
How did you go from the idea to actually starting the full-fledged business?
So I looked at what I knew, which is the types of things that had helped my husband and me. We received pediatric palliative care. We were in community with a handful, very small handful of other parents with whom we walked the journey. And then I thought to myself, all right, how can I make these resources available to all the parents out there? And I looked at what I knew how to do. I knew how to design and produce websites. I knew how to produce interviews. I knew social media. I knew the web. And I used to have a background also in distance learning. And I put it all together, and I came up with the model of Courageous Parents Network. The site went live, which I feel fortunate about.
What type of nonprofit are you?
We're a 501c3.
Where do you get your funding from?
Thus far, it's been entirely from one donor. It was a 3-year anonymous grant from somebody who understood I wanted to develop a resource for parents whose children were seriously ill with a focus on palliative care. But now, as I am launching Courageous Parents Network to a new level, and we're moving from proof of concept to roll out at a national and international level, we are diversifying our funding to include, obviously, a broad range of individuals as well as corporate and private foundations.
Are you looking for a smaller number of donors with larger funding capacity or a larger number of smaller donors?
It's easier if I can get a smaller number with great capacity. However, you know, if we get 1,000 people giving $20, that's fantastic too.
Is this your full-time job life?
This is my full-time job. Now it is, yes.
And how do you make money personally?
I build my salary into the budget of the organization, yes.
Over time, what percentage of every dollar raised should go into supporting your operations versus helping parents?
There isn't really a differentiator because you can't support parents if you're not paying for the people to do the work. So I'm not really sure that that's that there's a real accurate way to split. Without me and without my community manager, we're not reaching the parents, we're not developing the content for the parents. So we don't have any overhead at the moment. We don't have office space. We're working out of our homes. Everything is delivered over the web, and the costs are pretty low. It's mostly staff.
And how do you anticipate you'll stay positive if funding runs a little bit short in the next few months?
I'm working on raising money every day / every week, trying to have meetings with individuals and identify foundations that I can target, and I'm building my board. I've done all of this with a very, very small starter board, but now I'm transitioning my board to be professional, and they're going to help me. Members of my board have experience with fundraising and governance, and through their leadership and my personal mission and drive to help families, I'm confident we can do this.
And the number one concern you have about your business?
So the number one concern I have is that thinking about seriously ill children is difficult for people. How do I get people to pay attention to something that's scary? And I'm working on the messaging. I got a grant from the Social Innovation Forum, which is based here in Boston, to work on messaging and communications for precisely that purpose. I believe we have the message down, looking at the cost of not providing these services. It really is a moral question. So asking people to think about the cost of not supporting families in this situation, and asking them to think about something that they've probably never thought of before and don't want to think about. And that's hard.
Blythe, thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity, Greg.
Blythe Lord, the Executive Director of the Courageous Parents Network.
How to cut it in the world of dining. Next time on The Language of Business. Watch us online anytime at languageofbusiness.biz.